Welcome back to the Turn on the Music podcast. This is episode 13, the end of the music lesson. But to discuss that, I need someone to talk to. As always, CJ is here. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Kyle.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, people should know who you are.
Yeah.
You didn't announce, you didn't say who you were.
I did last week.
You did last week, but just not now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just goes with the day.
Goes with the day. Yep.
How you doing this evening?
I'm all right. I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's been a long week.
I know. Wednesday was a long week. like it just, and we had a day off Monday. Like it's just,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm excited because not next week, but the week after, I'm off Friday, Monday, Tuesday.
Really? Why?
So, because I work for the university, but I follow the government schedule, so I have June 30th off. It's called Holiday in Reserve. Basically, the university gets an extra day. I think it's Good Friday that they get off that I don't get off.
Right.
So to even those days out, the last day of the fiscal year, I get off.
Oh, nice.
So, and then July 3rd is technically a family day for military. No one's going to be in the office. Everyone was told to telework.
So it's like almost a 5-day weekend.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I took off Friday, so I'll have a 3-day weekend, but then I have to go in Monday, but then I'll be off on the Tuesday. So I thought about taking the 3rd off and giving myself a 5-day weekend. I still could do it. It's a possibility. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah. I have no plans for those days yet, but
yeah,
I've got a dog who's still in a cast. I've got the Jeep is finally fixed.
That's good.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. So the dog's cast comes off tomorrow, and then I have to leash walk her still for like another 2 weeks just to be sure she's healed.
Tell your dog to stop doing things that hurt herself.
Well, the first time she didn't do anything. The second time she chased a rabbit. So.
Oh, that's too funny.
So what are you listening to? Anything good?
I actually have been going. I've been just doing to like Corey Wong lately. Yeah. Basically, I've been sitting with the one from what is it? Amsterdam? No.
Mm-hmm.
But is it Amsterdam? The
Amsterdam with the Metropole?
Yeah, whatever. That one. Haven't strayed far away from that.
Okay.
Some of the mornings I've just been getting into my car and driving, so I don't even put the radio on, the music on sometimes. I just kind of go and just yell at the other driveways for being idiots.
There were some good ones this morning, man.
Yeah. I just, you know what it is? You look at them and you watch people do it. I'm not saying they're all bad drivers. I'm just saying you look at what people are doing. You're like, if you don't do that, we don't have traffic. Like, there's like if you don't do this, this is not going to happen, and we could be moving along.
Yep. And I was listening to a podcast last week. And they said the exact same thing.
Right.
And I was like, it's so true. Like, just stop, do what you're supposed to do. We will get there faster.
Right.
And then I was thinking the other day, it's like, assuming that people at 7:00 in the morning are driving to work. Do you really want to get to work that fast?
Right.
It's like, come on.
You know what it is? I don't want to sit in traffic. Like, if I have to be at work at 8, I don't want to have to leave at 6:45 to play it safe that I get there by 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Now, typically, I can get there by 7:30, right?
Right.
But if I leave at 7, I'm getting there sometimes after 8 o'clock. So it's like that 15 minutes. It's too much. So I have to make sure I leave a little before 7, just enough to get on the road. So, and there's road work everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we mentioned it once on one podcast where we were live when we talked about that, or we were talking about it in the car about that conspiracy theory that they bought too many traffic cones. So instead of them storing them, they just put them on the streets.
Yep.
That's what it feels like.
And I think my state has bought too many traffic circles because like every weekend they're closing another road to put a new one in, and it closes the road for like 90 days. It's like
that's crazy. Not that they're bad.
They're not bad. The problem is the people around here have no idea how to use them.
Exactly.
And it's like, it just makes it worse.
And they're called traffic circles here, but they're called roundabouts.
Right.
Yeah. I was reading, I saw something where a guy, I think he said it was a guy in England. There was this note. He's like, I just want to build a house in the middle of a roundabout because no one will ever bother you.
I think I have some strange search history in my YouTube, and I think I saw a video the other day that popped up that it was a guy who was stealth camping in a roundabout.
That's too funny.
I don't know how I got on that like algorithm, but
that's too funny.
Yeah.
So what are you listening to or have been?
Still Corey Wong, Truesdale as well. They did a live NPR, which I put in the show notes last week. That was really good. I've been listening to the heck out of that too. And they've got a new a new song dropping, I think tomorrow on YouTube. So
that's awesome.
I'll be checking that out.
Hannah can't speak. Hannah Wickland.
Yes.
Tomorrow she has a song dropping.
Does she?
She has a new song coming out. I think it's off of the album that's coming out in October.
Cool.
Yeah. I forget the name of it.
Check that out tomorrow.
But she has a song coming out.
If I can find my mouse.
So that's cool. I'm curious about how that's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's going to be good because she's all the stuff that she's put out so far has been good. And then
all right, we got the Todoist up. Let's go to add a task. Let's go.
What are you doing?
Wickland. I'm putting a reminder in to check out Hannah Wickland's song.
Oh, let me see if I can get the title of it. I'll go onto her Insta real quick.
Is it on Spotify or
I
YouTube,
think it's kind of going everywhere.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. It's called Hide and Seek. And she said it's unlike any song I've written. She says, and I'll just read the little thing that she put. This was yesterday. Usually I'm writing about the end of a relationship and not the beginning of one. The chaos in the chorus encapsulates that explosive feeling of wanting someone to so badly that it almost doesn't make sense. The anxiety of just the idea of losing someone at the same time you're falling in love with them is such a bizarre experience. Cannot wait for the song to become yours in just 2 days. Okay, so she wrote this 2 days ago. So it comes out tomorrow. And I'm assuming it's on Spotify and all those streaming things. So cool. That's exciting.
Shall we get to the book?
All right, let's get to the book.
So it's going to be another short chapter, I think.
This is maybe a very short chapter, and it's a lot of it's recapping what he wrote about.
Yes.
Which is why it's in. We didn't give the title yet, so it's measure. It's not called Measure 13. It's actually called Coda. Back to the beginning.
Yep.
And then the little subtext is, what is more dangerous to a person, success or failure?
That's an interesting question.
It is, and he does touch base on it in the chapter. And I'm curious, when we get to that point, like what we talk about. I don't know what you have highlighted, because as we all know, we don't talk about it. We kind of make it happen as we're talking. So, I mean, he talks a little bit about playing a lot more, invited to a benefit concert in Carnegie Hall, thinking that he saw a familiar face in the balcony.
Yep.
And he talks about how, I guess this is written this chapter, quote unquote, is written 5 years after, because he says much has changed in the last 5 years. And he says, my relationship with music has allowed me to play better than ever, and everyone can tell. It took me a while, but now I think I understand what it meant when I was told that I needed to stop playing the instrument. These days, even though I'm not yet consistent, I do my best to play music instead of the bass. And it's funny because I consider myself more of a singer than an instrumentalist, and I think I've said this before. Even as a singer, you just want to sing music, and it's hard sometimes to get yourself mentally in that state because you're so focused on, I'm going to hit the note right, I'm going to say the right word, or I'm going to do this right, or I'm going to do that right. And I feel like as a singer, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I feel like because you're singing the lyrics to the song, you're more out there than an instrumentalist. And I don't mean that in a negative, like in a bad way, but at the same time, everybody's out there. Like it's such a weird thing. And I think, you can hit a wrong note as a singer and probably make it work, but you're more likely to be pointed out by somebody than if you were an instrumentalist who hit a wrong note. That's my opinion. I could be completely wrong, but that's just my opinion on that matter.
Right.
But that's how I see it as a singer. Like, if I'm singing and I'm a little flat or a little sharp or a little that or a little this, that's going to be pointed out more than if a bassist or a guitarist or somebody bent a note wrong or played the wrong note, because you can kind of feed that into whatever you're playing.
Right.
And that's there. But at the same time, you could be out of tune. So it's like it's a weird thing. What is your take on that?
I don't know that I would say that. I don't think that I think singers are have that same. I think it's an even playing field. I don't know.
You think so?
I think that it's harder to. How do I describe this? I think singers react more to mistakes than instrumentalists.
Maybe okay. That I could. You know what? That makes sense. I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where that connotation could come from.
Okay. You're saying more in the fact that, like, if they sing a wrong note, quote unquote, their facial expression may show more than. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely.
And I also think that, like, because you have, as an instrumentalist, there's so much stuff going on, the coordination between your fingers and your brain, and you don't react as much because you're worrying about what, at least for me.
No,
I don't react much. I just keep going. But as a singer, because my hands are not busy, it's easier for me to react the wrong way.
And you know what? I get what you're saying. Like, I actually, that actually makes a lot of sense in what, like, to what I was trying to say. I think that leads better. I think that's a good point to make, is that you're doing so much as an instrumentalist that you don't have the time to right. Okay.
And that's not to say that singers don't do a lot of work.
No, not at all.
It's just that there's a layer of hand-eye coordination and other stuff going on that I think that takes up the brain's ability to do other stuff.
I think that's a totally valid statement. I think that's a totally valid. I think that's I could see that. That's why we talk about it. Yeah.
And that's when it comes up with what is more dangerous to a person, success or failure, comes out. Which is an interesting question, because I can see both as being very damaging to certain people.
Which he states. Mm-hmm. He does state that he has a few acquaintances that were on the top of their game and successful, and they changed and became unrecognizable. And he said there was a few people that were failed and they just gave up on everything because of the few failures they had. I think it's that it goes back to the yin and yang. It's having that balance of knowing you're successful. Like he says before this, he says, the recognition of my peers makes me feel wonderful, and I appreciate all of it, but I'm always sure to keep myself in check.
Yep.
And I think that's important. I think that you have to remember where you're coming from. and it's funny because I brought this up once before and we had a discussion about it. My grandfather, who was an opera singer, said there's going to always be someone better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and I know we discussed it a little bit because you felt it was a little different. But if you think about it in the context of this, where he is like, I have to check myself.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, that kind of fits because he's always making sure, he's always working hard, always doing this, always that. So
right.
He's always better than the next person. But he's keeping that balance.
Right.
See,
to me, that statement is more, I don't want my success to become overconfident and ego-driven.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't want my failures to bring me down. So it is a balancing act.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a huge balancing act. I think one of the hardest things, it's funny when you talk with friends and you're growing up and all that stuff, you're supportive and you're like, listen, it's okay. You could fail. You can make a mistake. It's good to go. But then you as an individual can't accept that advice.
Yep.
And you're giving out that advice of like, you got this. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, no worries. You go to the next one and it'll be great. And you just learn from your mistakes. And then when you go home and you do your thing, you're like, oh, I can't believe I screwed that up. Like you just, you beat yourself up about it. And even though you are giving that advice out to somebody, it's hard to accept. And even that's a balance. And it's funny because it reminds me back like all the way, even like back into middle school. I remember talking to this kid and he was a hockey player and he was a good athlete. Right. And he's like, he turned around to me and goes, listen, I may not be a professional, but if I see a professional doing something that could be done better, why can't I give him the advice? He goes, I should be able to give him advice. I'd be like, hey, listen, you're not doing that well. And I thought about that and I'm like, it's interesting. Like, what if you're doing something and even though I may not be a professional, but I see you're doing something that is not going to help you because no one else has ever saw it? Do I have the right to tell you it's okay? And that comes from success and failure too, because where do you lie on that?
Right. And that reminds me of, so when I was in high school, I bowled a lot. And one of my bowling coaches would take me to tournaments when he was bowling to coach him. And I was like, you average like 30 pins higher than it. Why are you taking me? And he's like, yeah, well, like I can't see what I'm doing.
Right.
But you can, and you know what it should look like, and you know what can be improved.
Right.
So it's and there's so many times where I was teaching like music lessons, like just thinking like, wow, if I could only just take my own advice, if I could be my own teacher,
right?
Like I would be a much better musician.
But that's a very...
I'm not a good enough student for myself. So
it's like they say, doctors make the worst patients, teachers make the worst students.
Yep.
But I mean, he's right though. He may be a better bowler, quote unquote, but you know enough of technique and stuff for you to be able to say, hey, listen, when you threw the ball that way, this is why it hooked.
Yep.
Or this is, and it's funny because we don't look at it that way. And I think that's a lot of what this book is talking about.
Yeah.
Is that whole idea that whether you're a professional or not, there's still a lot to learn. And you're going to learn from everybody.
Yep.
Even if you are at the top of your game, there's still going to be someone there. And this goes back to being better than you. And I use that loosely, but there's going to be someone out there that's going to see something in you and be like, they could still teach you.
Yep.
I think that's a key element to this whole entire book.
For sure.
Yeah. It's not a lot it's just a lot of recapping.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love, excuse me, he starts talking about Michael and Uncle Clyde and Sam and Isis and how he misses them. And then he says, where is it? He says, you see, to me, they are music. It was made clear to me that music is related to everything, especially nature and language. But in order to speak it naturally, I had to first make myself a part of it. Music herself told me that, and now that I understand what she was talking about, I can fully appreciate the lyric, I once was lost, but now I'm found. First off, that's Amazing Grace, and that's one of his,
right,
songs. And we'll talk about it more in the second book. You know, when he gets injured, there's a point where they play Amazing Grace to heal him. But I love the fact that he says that, you know, Michael and Clyde and Sam are music to him. You know, there's just that, because there's such a strong connection there, you know, and music is a part of them. I think, and they are people who I think are just so full of music that they are music.
Right. And it goes to the whole storyline where we know that there are real people that these are based off of, but there's a lot of elements of the story that you don't know if they're true or not. Mm-hmm. And it lends to that because it could just be music that he's talking about. And he personified music by that was horrible.
This is the remix.
Personified music with these characters, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. You know, and gave each one of them a part of music that stood out to him, like Isis with space, Sam with rhythm and tempo, and then Michael was a lot of the other elements, and Clyde was like the internal.
Yep.
You know, the letting, you know, like, and all that stuff. Like, I think that that's very, you know, like you said, it's cool that he does that. They are music.
And in the last chapter, you know, when music asked him, you know, what words would you use to describe me? One of the words he said was God. And if you relate this to biblical stuff, you know, one of the things that God did was made man in his own image. And if you think about it, you know, now he's saying that these people are music. So in a sense, music made these people in her image. Kind of a weird correlation. But you can see how you can substitute music for religion, you know, and we've said it, you know, many times that it's kind of this, you know, all religion is kind of based on the same stuff.
Right.
You know, and I've talked with people before, you know, and people say, well, you can't say that music is God. And it's like, that's blasphemy. It's like, well, but you can call God by any name you want.
Right.
So why can't I call it music?
Right. God has different names in every religion, but you're talking about God.
Right.
You know, and if you go by the belief that God created everything, he created music in his image.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So he is music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's right. You know, like, it's just, no, that's true. It's very true. Like, why can't you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because then he goes into the next paragraph. He goes, all music can be broken down into numbers. And since music and life are the same, I guess that life is numbers too.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I once heard someone say that all of life could be broken down into mathematical equation. And he goes, that's too much math and blah, blah, blah. But apparently, and I don't know about this. I don't know if you know anything about this. He goes, I do know that Nashville musicians have figured out a way to read and write music without using letters at all. They call it the Nashville number system.
I've been meaning to look it up and I've never done it.
Is that tabs?
I don't think so.
Because I don't know if that would work for everybody, because that's really guitar based.
Right. Let's see.
We find out it's really, you know. And anybody who's listening to this episode, if you know anything about it, please contact us. I know Kyle puts our email and info inside the show notes, so please email us if you know about it. I'm very curious. I'd love to know more and understand.
It looks like it's just like what we do in classical music, where we just number the chords of a key signature.
Okay. So it's like a quick reference in a sense.
Yeah. So like in the key of C, like C is 1, D minor is 2, E minor is 3. So.
Interesting. But it's using numbers.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
Which we do when we analyze music, you know?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Absolutely. He continues on and he talks about Sam and how they're constantly in contact with each other because they live nearby and they're friends and all that stuff, and how he's still learning from Sam. Mm-hmm. He talks about how he feels that Clyde passed away. And he goes to see Clyde, and the last time he saw him, he found the harmonica. And he said that he picked up the harmonica and he was able to play it, but he's never played the harmonica before. Mm-hmm. And then he talks about how he brings it back home and he goes to play it again and he can't play it. And I was like, that's very interesting, like to that point. And then he talks about how he goes to see Isis and she's not there. And they
well, before you do that, I think the other interesting thing that he says after that is, I don't know what page it's on, but he says, I can't play it, but I know someday I'll be able to pick it up and play it or something like that.
Right. I know that I'll regain the feeling when the time is right. Yes.
Right. That's
yes. Yeah. No. That's very important. And then that continues into the ISIS thing, going to look for ISIS, can't find her. He goes out to the car and he finds a card on his windshield wiper, and the only thing that's written on it is a 0. And he said he holds that in his pocket, in his wallet. I'm curious if he has a card with a 0.
Ask him when you see him.
Well, will I have the opportunity to speak to him?
Every time I've seen him, he is.
I'm going to ask him then. Yeah. If that's the case, I'm going to bring the book and have him sign it or something. And he goes and he gets in the car, and the song "Let It Be" is on the radio. Mm-hmm. But then he goes into and he talks about the hawk and how he's kept in touch with the Red Hawk. Mm-hmm. But I think the big thing about this whole thing is he talks about meditation. And how meditation has balanced him and that he has a spidey sense.
Mm-hmm. And if you watch a lot of his concerts, for a long time he was wearing Spider-Man stuff and Marvel stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he actually has a Spider-Man comic book episode that he's in. It was on his website for a while. I don't know if it's still there.
Like a comic book that they wrote him into?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's really funny.
Let me see if it's still on his website.
So in this section, he talks about Michael. And Michael says, when he first told me, Victor says, when Michael first told him about that notes were overrated, I didn't quite understand what he was getting at. I found out later that he didn't actually believe that statement. He told me that just to make me focus more on the other elements. He felt, as I now do, that the other elements are neglected by most teachers and musicians and that they need more attention. Finally, and he says, I finally understand it. And I think that's true. We've spoken about this. I think a lot of times when we deal with teachers, private teachers, music lesson teachers, and I think it's more so back in the day, maybe not as much now, but I haven't been around the teachers. We focus a lot on notes. Read this. This is an A. This is a B. This is C. This is how you see this. This is how you see that. Like, there's not enough play. And I'm curious. I would love to sit in a classroom now because there's a lot more play being involved in the classroom, even in the other subject matters.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure.
So how is that being integrated or put into the classroom or into a private lesson when it comes to music?
Right. Yeah.
Like, do you just and it's like I mentioned before, my friend's son is a trumpet player, and I asked questions about the teacher, and they were telling me some really great things about him. And he actually told their son, just once in a while, throw a song on and just play with it. Like, don't worry about notes, just figure it out. Yep. Have fun. That's great. Mm-hmm. That gives you an opportunity to kind of like listen and listen being the big thing.
Yep, absolutely.
What do you have? Do you have anything after that?
Pretty far after that, he talks about thanking his bass guitar.
Right.
He says, thanking my bass is a new habit of mine. I used to give thanks only when I was about to eat a meal, but now I say thank you to everything. I thank my headaches, clothes, my television, and my life. And I thank music. I thank everything all the time, and it really makes a difference. And back when I meditated, so I spoke about it about this app before, but I use 10% Happier a lot for my meditation, and they would do gratification meditations, and they were when you follow like some of the courses, like they were like once a week, like it was a gratification meditation, which I thought was really great, and I enjoyed them. I think that's important. The that gratification is important to share.
I think, and it can't, and it's not like when people are polite and say thank you, we're not talking about that. We're talking more about like true gratitude to a situation. Like, I do my best not to throw thank you out there just willy-nilly, but I'm also not going to be rude. Like, if someone does something, say thank you very much. But like, even with certain things, I'm trying to like every day be thankful and say thankful, like manifest the gratitude and say thank you for this, and thank you for people that I know, thank you for this person that, because in the book he talks about vibration, and when you put something out there, it's vibrating and it's out there.
Yep.
And
I found after reading this book, like even like driving around, when people like let you go and you thank them, I found that my thank yous were different. Like my internal thank yous to that person were different after reading this book.
Yeah. Because you don't want to put out negative energy.
Right.
Like, I've tried all my life to not put out negative energy, and I'm sure that I've put it out there. I'm sure, we've all gone through our stuff. We've gone through our emotions. We've gone through mental health. We've gone through everything. Everybody deals with something, and I'm sure but like, if I can know that the bigger percentage of energy that I put out there is a positive, kind energy, then hopefully that's making a difference.
Yep.
And it's true. I see what you're saying. Like, it hits differently. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, he talks about how he thanks like every part of the instrument, the people that built the instrument, and then he said once he did that and he put the guitar down, he went to go pick up the guitar, and he said it felt like it was as light as a feather, which I think is a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
And then he goes into, which essentially starts the next book.
Yep. He
goes into how he's on tour and he goes to visit his family. And then while he's on his family, he goes to go for a run. And then while he's on the run, all this stuff starts to happen. And he runs into this, gets drawn to this kid that's sitting in his apartment, just like his book started out. And he becomes a teacher.
Yep.
I don't know if you have anything in there that you wanted to read off. There is one thing. I will read one thing, though. He goes, "Remember," Michael had said, "it is easier to learn to play your instrument, but playing it well is not enough. It is time for you to enter the world of a true musician. It is time for you to become an ally of music and share her blessings. You are now the keeper of the flame. Please keep the flame alive, and do not allow music to die." I think that hit, because I was thinking about what we do and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to share music out. And I truly think that this is one way to keep music alive. I don't, there's so many different elements to that. It's not just playing it. It's not just being a teacher. It's sharing it. Yeah. It's getting people to listen to it more and all that stuff. And listening to artists they would typically not listen to. So it's that last chapter is the shortest chapter. It's a recap of the book, but then he just hits you with these like random things, and you're just like, oh man, like what the heck?
Yeah, one of the guys I work with, he's only in on 1 day a week, but he shares the office with me on one day a week, and his taste in music is very different than mine. It's a lot of like death metal, screaming metal, that sort of thing. But he has a respect for all music, which I love. And today he played it for me. I don't know who it was, but it was like death metal country. And it was really cool.
That's funny.
But
like that type of.
Yeah, and then like
doom metal?
Half the song was, it was like doom metal, but then it would like just kind of like morph into like country, and then it would morph back into like the death metal.
I think people do not understand the talent that's needed to do that type of metal.
Yeah.
There is a musicianship there that's ridiculous, because the singer, for example, who's gutturally doing this, where they're just, they have to do this every time they're performing. And if they're not doing it with proper technique, they're not going to have a voice after one show.
Yep.
And I know people that do it, and we've had this conversation, and he'll do like 3 or 4 shows in a week, and he's still fine at the end of the week. But there's a way of doing it. I follow a female artist who's a part of a group, and she does it. And there's a lot of female artists out there that do that, and it's just amazing to hear their voice go that guttural, and then I heard her sing, like sing, not sing the prison, but sing, and she has a great voice. She has a fantastic voice.
Yep.
Which means she was properly trained and she knows how to use her voice.
Yeah.
You know?
No, go ahead. Finish
no, go ahead. You're good. Yeah.
I was going to say that I remember one lesson I had with Ron. So Ron's son, Ethan, is a fabulous guitarist, but he's into like the progressive, like real flashy metal type stuff. And he said when he started playing this, I couldn't stand it. And then I realized that he is the jazz musician of my day. You know, like the Charlie Mingus's and the Miles Davis's, like this progressive rock stuff has that sort of, like, it's the same stuff, it's just different. But like he realized that was he thought it was just noise until he really sat down and listened to what was going on and went, okay, this is impressive stuff.
We automatically, it's like, we hear songs, we're like, oh, that's horrible. But you don't when you don't listen to it and really pay attention to what's going on in the song, you don't realize. It's like let's go to the genre that I don't listen to. Like, I don't listen to country or hip hop or all that stuff.
Yep.
That does not mean that I don't appreciate the fact that someone who does hip hop learns layers and layers and layers and are able to create and produce this song.
Right.
That's still impressive. You know, like, you're finding ways to create a song, and maybe you're just looping things, but you figured out how to do it in such a way that you produce a song.
Yep.
You know, and the same thing with country music. Like, I don't like to sit and listen to country music, but you've taken a song and you've put a twist on it. You know, and it's just, that's why I think cover songs, like we did that cover episode on June 11th where we did like a live show. It's interesting because it's their take on that song. Like, how close are they going to stay to the original, but how much of themselves are they putting into the song to change it up?
Right.
You know, like, what are they doing to the song to make it different? And it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's just the way they're interpreting it, you know? And we're like, as classically trained musicians, every classical artist is going to perform the same song differently because they're going to feel it differently.
Yep.
Like, if I'm going to sing a classical piece, I'm not going to sing it like the guy that sang it before. I'm not going to feel it the same way he did. Right. I'm going to feel it completely different. Will I listen to him and get a feel for it? Absolutely. Because I want to see what he's doing with it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to feel it the same way.
And your experience, and that's because your experiences are different than his or hers.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Experiences play a huge factor. I'm singing about something completely different. You know, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever it is. No, it's true.
Yep.
This book is just, it's such a good book.
It is. So let me ask you this.
Okay.
After reading this book, how has this book changed you? Because, I mean, we tell people all the time that it's this great book, but, you know, as far as, can you put it into words what this book has done for your life?
I think, no, let me rephrase that. The book has impacted more than just the music end of my life. It makes me realize how much I miss music in the sense of performing and doing all that stuff. And I hope to find a way, even if it takes me the next year, to get back into the swing of performing in some way, whether it's singing, whether it's playing the saxophone, whatever it may be, even if it's just for myself, just doing something musically where I'm using, and lack for a better word, my talent. Because as much as I say that, I don't consider myself a talented person, but I do know I have ability. So that's how I see it. But I think at the other side to it is that there's so many different elements. Like, so they talk about the elements, right? He equated them not just to music, but to life. And I think that is the big picture too, where music to him is life. And that's how I've always felt. But it's finding that balance of life and music that guide you through your everyday and guide you through this journey that we're on. And it puts me in a different place. Like, if we're going to get into spirituality, it reminds me of like my connection to the energies that are out there, what I feel from other people, and whether it's empathetic, whether it's a nervous, whatever the situation, I know, and I've been told that I'm an empath, but my empathy has always been there. I always feel what the other person's feeling. And I think it brings me back to how I was a couple decades ago, where I was more, so it makes me want to recenter myself. It makes me want to get back into the meditation. It makes me want to do the things that I used to do back in the day when I was in a worse mindset than I am now.
Right.
And I think it just, and it does it in such a way where you don't feel bad about it. Like it's not like someone's going like, why are you screwing up? Like it you read it and you're like, okay, I get that. Oh yeah. And I love the fact that in the book, there are elements when he gets frustrated and he wrote that in there. Like he didn't have to write that in there, but he wrote that in there, and he shows the human side of his struggle, which is that frustration, that mental aspect, the anxiety, all that stuff. And he wrote that in there. And I think that's the other element that helped me in the book, is to see that, okay, he went through this too. And he wrote it in. Like he's just not picking out the good parts. He's saying, I got frustrated and I yelled at them. I was like, okay, like that's huge that he shared that.
Yep.
So I think it makes me want to go back to that moment where I felt centered. I felt like I had a better balance. And like I said, when I was in my 20s, I was a completely different mindset than I am now. And I think I'm in a better mindset now in my 40s than I was in my 20s. And I want to get back to the way I was in my 20s with this better mindset. That's what I want. That's what this book makes me want.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
So I'll start there. There have been many times that I've said to myself, I wish I knew this back when I was in high school and college, because it would have changed what I do now.
Agreed.
So that's one thing. This book changed the way I teach. That was a huge thing. I revamped all of my private lessons because of this book, for the better, I think.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I think the quality of the kids that, the musicians that I worked with was greater because of this book. I think they grew more and faster. And from a pure numbers perspective, I got more students when I started teaching like this. And I was in more of a demand because of this.
Because of word of mouth or whatnot.
Yeah, word of mouth. Yep. But at the same time, like you pointed out, there's a lot of stuff in this book that, while it's not done in a way that is meant to demean you, it's meant to open your eyes, and it's like, I've screwed up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not that I'm saying you screwed up a lot. I'm agreeing with you.
But at the same time, it's like it wants you to do better, but like because of my stupid brain, my brain dwells on that you screwed up and like you wasted all this time. It's not worth going forward, and that's where I struggle. It's like I'm only 41, but it's like I've wasted all this time. It's like, but I can stop wasting time and like do something better, but I still wallow in the I've screwed up, and I'm trying to get out of that.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that because I'm that's one of the things that I deal with on top of other stuff. But yeah, no, I get that. And it's funny because in the book, I think it was Uncle Clyde, who said, well, you're here now, and there's a reason why you're here now. And Michael even says, he goes, why do you need to warm up? You've been warming up all your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we were to take that and put that to the life aspect versus the music aspect, maybe we were just warming up to where we needed to get to at this point.
Yep.
You know, like everything that we dealt with from our childhood to now was just a warm up to what we're really going to be accomplishing and doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, that's a hard mindset to put yourself in, to be like, oh, so all these mistakes I made and all this, like, is going to, like, it's hard, but it's accepting the failures that you feel you went through, and it's accepting the good and the bad and the ugly, and saying, okay, it's going to get better because I'm better because of that stuff.
Yep.
Not easy to do.
Nope.
It's not easy to say, well, I screwed up here, but I'm better for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because you think of everything. Did I hurt somebody? How did I do this? What did I do here? You know, and you don't want to, you never want to hurt somebody. Is it going to happen? Yeah, it potentially could happen. But when you're someone like us, and there's a lot of people like that sits on you more than anything else. It's a tough thing.
Yep.
But yes, the book puts it in such a way where it's not like slapping you across the face, but it's putting it out in front of you and making you think about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
are you ready for the next book?
I'm ready for the next book.
The next episode's going to be more of kind of like touching base and talking. And then we're going to jump into the next book.
I was thinking, and we don't have to.
Don't hurt yourself.
What do you think about doing a little Corey Wong for next week? A little Corey Wong introduction as our intermission.
You mean, oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Why not?
We can still do our check-in, but I think, I mean, we've been hooked on Corey Wong now for a while. I think it's worth sharing his stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
Why not? We've been talking about him a lot. I think we should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
And then maybe that live show after we'll play some more.
Sounds good.
Because we're not going to play full-on clips, but we could share a little bit about, and then we can do the episode the live show after on his stuff.
Cool.
That's a great idea. I like it.
Yay.
So our next episode will be that, and then the episode after that will start chapter 1 of The Spirit of Music, which is it's going to feel familiar, but it's completely different.
It's like Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
It's familiar to Breath of the Wild, but there's a lot of changes and a lot of... It's massive compared to Breath of the Wild.
That's crazy.
And Breath of the Wild felt massive. So
that's crazy.
Obviously, I'm still hooked on Zelda.
That's too good. It's too good. Real quick stuff. Sundays we go live at 7:30 on Twitch, so come join us then. We'll be doing after this episode, before this episode. We just done. We focused on Palm Mystery, which is Victor Wooten's album. That is probably one of my favorite albums that he did. There's a bunch on there, and then
and that album really reflects this book.
Yes, thank you.
So this book is called The Music Lesson. There was a song called The Lesson, and if you look at the beginning of each chapter, there's a bunch of notes and chords. The lesson is that, like that is what is at the beginning of these chapters, just the actual melody part.
It's kind of perfect that we're playing it after this, before this episode.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah,
so, unplanned.
Yeah. Friday nights, Kyle goes live on Twitch at 8:00. He's been sharing some new to us artists, like Corey Wong and who's the other
Michael Farris.
Michael Farris, and then a few others.
Truesdale.
I'm sorry.
Katie Pruitt. Truesdale. Katie Pruitt.
Right. So check that out. We do have, as you know, every Tuesday our episodes drop. So thank you for those who are listening and every week. We have a YouTube's. So if you're enjoying these episodes and you want to see us recording them and maybe get some little extra stuff that doesn't get cut out, check it. They come out a couple weeks after the episodes drop. Kyle also throws up some shorts on Fridays, bloopers, outtake, all the funny stuff, the funny bits that we don't put into it. Or we do, and we just isolate them because they're funny. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You'll have that in the show notes. And please join us on our Discord. Also, in the show notes in the link tree, was it July 16th? We're doing another covers live show with covers. We love for you to fill out that form that you'll see in that link tree and that thing.
I'm filling it out right now.
And the cool thing is what we do is we play the original, then we play the cover, and we actually have a vote going on during the live show to see which one tends to be liked more. And the one we did on June 11th, like we mentioned before, the covers won out. The versions were very well done. Not that the originals weren't good, but the covers kind of won out.
Yep.
So check out that stuff in the show notes. And so again, thank you everyone for who's been listening to us each week, and we appreciate it. And if you haven't picked up the book, pick up the book, read it. It doesn't matter if you're a musician.
And while you're picking it up, pick up The Spirit of Music.
And The Spirit of Music too. Yeah, it's totally worth it. Amazon has it. We're not sponsored by them, but Amazon has it. I think it sits around $16 for both books.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah, so check it out.
All right. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening.
Have a good one.
See ya. Thank you for listening to the Turn on the Music podcast. We hope that you join us next week. Click on the link tree in our show notes to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our Twitch and YouTube channel. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join us on our Discord. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend. And if you really want to help us promote the show, head over to Apple Podcasts or the podcast service of your choice and give us a 5-star rating. Remember, always share the music.
Thank you.